Hello everyone and welcome to Sci-Fi Zone, where we celebrate science fiction movies and TV shows from the past, the present and the future. I'm here today with Claire and H, and we're coming to you from the wonderful store of Alternate Worlds. Today we're going to be discussing Black Mirror, but before we get to that, we're going to have a quick chat about the Halo TV series. Who knew it was actually going to be happening? Well, apparently it is. If you know your history, you'll know that they were going to try and make a Halo movie many years ago. And of course, Halo is the big Xbox game that a lot of people would know. But that movie never went ahead, and the director of that ended up making District 9 instead. But Halo, the TV series, is in the works with the old Master Chief. It's all very exciting. And it sort of made me wonder about what other science fiction computer games. There's been a lot of computer games overall, but sci-fi computer games that have been turned into movies, and whether people will remember them or not. So the most recent one I think in recent times was probably Doom. Don't know if either of you
that
ever.
was the Rock and Carl Urban version.
And I tell you what, I don't think it even related to the computer game at all. Because for the game, you just went around and just killed everything. So
I don't tried sometimes
was
to
there a
do.
story?
There was a first-person
was,
perspective
yeah.
sometimes in the footage that they were using. But that's one of the very early Rock
because when you watch
movies.
the movie and you go, is this the story of the game? And as I said, I don't think the game even had a story. So
well, there was one of Battleship.
Battleship?
Oh, board games.
The board game turned into a movie as well.
Games.
But there's been a couple of movies that have been inspired by computer games. One of the ones that didn't go too well was Wing Commander. Way back in.
That was a shame, because that was not actually a bad film.
Because apparently there's a quote from Freddie Prinze Jr., who was a main actor in it, and he said that the original script that he read was really good, and when they turned up for filming, they changed it, and it was terrible, and he just wants nothing to do with it. So, and fans were really upset with the change of the Kilrathi. He got rid of all the fur and made him a bit more alien and whatever else. So, but unfortunately, it died a death, as it were. So. Which wasn't too good. One of the ones that I did like personally, and it's sort of more horror than sci-fi, but there's definitely sci-fi elements, was Resident Evil. I was a big fan of that. I thought that Resident Evil was
the whole series.
just the first movie. As always, as we've discussed in previous things, start with the top. Don't worry about the ones that come below.
That's one of my guilty pleasure series. I actually watched the rest of the series as well. Mila Jovovich.
Yes.
So,
they sort of just started churning these things out one after another. But just sticking with the first movie, I actually thought it was actually quite good. There's a bit of horror in it, a bit of grossness. Zombies running around. You can't have a bad movie with zombies in it. What can I say? And that was actually, I think, a very, very good representation of a film that came from a computer game. And of course, one of the ones that probably has a good, interesting part of history was Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within. One of the first all CG movies where they tried to replicate human beings. You, as a digital person, would be
digital
a big
person. I enjoyed that. I mean, the amount of work they put in to doing the digital characters. I mean, you still were in that uncanny valley sort of thing.
They look real, but they kind of don't look real. Yeah.
But it was. I think it was a bold attempt to do a movie.
It was so bold, in fact, it made the studio broke. They actually, Square Pictures, I think it was, they just died a death after that production. It was so expensive.
Because I think I think when they were doing the Animatrix, that's what I'm thinking of, the Animatrix. Yes, because they actually took the some of the assets from Final Fantasy and used those to do a proof of concept for the Animatrix versions. The Last Flight of the Osiris, that's what I was trying to think of. Okay. And if you get the Blu-ray of that, they've actually got the test footage, which is a fight with one of the Sentinels.
Okay.
So,
I actually, I saw it in the cinema, actually. Final Fantasy actually got a cinematic release, and it was very groundbreaking, very revolutionary, and if anything, it was the kind of thing, whenever you didn't look at a person, you had scenery, it was like really photorealistic, but they did try their damned hardest to make their people look completely real. And some people had argued that they tried too hard and it was just a bit too real. And of course, the other thing that worked against it, the story, for the most part, was really easy to follow, but once you started getting into the whole thing with the Gaia and the spirits of the earth and all the rest of it, audiences just go, nah, can't handle it. Just give me aliens and lots of spaceships and fighting and whatever. So I have no idea what the game's like. There's like 10,000 Final Fantasies. But as always, it kind of ends well for the aliens, not so well for the humans, but then they all become one big happy family towards the end. And weren't even aliens, were they? Oh, yes, they were aliens. Yes, of course they were.
It was almost like
They're like
disturbed spirits.
Yeah, they weren't.
Yeah.
They weren't happy. So if your bottle of whiskey is not very in a good mood, you could say that's a disturbed spirit. What can I say? Very good. How good is that? Take a swig. So there you go. Anyway, look, Halo, the TV series, is come out at some point in the future. They're still working on it. Who knows what it will be like? And of course, the big question will be: will Master Chief take his helmet off? Because in the game, never does.
Please. No, that's
the closest you can get to a Halo movie or even a series is actually Red versus Blue, which some fans did years ago, where they just all they did is just record in-game footage and put their own voiceovers over the bodies as they were moving. So yeah, it was very, very funny and it sort of worked, and they did quite well out of it actually. So there you go. Anyway, keep your eyes open for that. Computer games that have turned into movies. Very exciting stuff. And with that in mind, we're going to take a break and we will be back with you straight after these messages.
Alternate Worlds has been specialising in comics and collectibles for over 40 years, with a back issue collection of over 500,000 comics covering the golden age right through to latest releases, including signed and slabbed gems. They also have an enormous graphic novel collection, one of the largest ranges of manga in the country, as well as toys, statues and pops, and new items are arriving every Wednesday. Each month, Alternate Worlds hosts its own premium comic day, where all the rare treasures are put on display for inspection and purchase. The store also runs regular tournaments and competitions for both comic and gaming fans. And for local and interstate and international buyers, the Alternate Worlds website features their complete range of products, so whether you come in online or in store, visit them soon.
Welcome back. One of the great things about this particular show is we get to talk about other shows, and some of them you know very well, others are quite unique and different, and in this particular one, Claire has got something that she wishes to bring up. So Claire, what have you got for us today?
Well, I want to talk about Black Mirror. It's a relatively new show. It's similar in concept to something like The Outer Limits, where it's individual episodes, completely different stories and different actors for each episode. It focuses a lot on social media. There are quite a few episodes that deal with the question of social media and how we use it and how we could use it. And it's not about happy endings.
Oh, God,
it's
no,
not about...
Worth watching for that. No Hollywood out the window. Thank you very much for coming.
Although it did stories in different countries, it was essentially a British series, and it's got British do grim extremely well. It's something we've always done really well.
They're a miserable bunch of people watching.
And this is it's a bit like a more miserable version of Twilight Zone.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
And they've taken on big name actors on this one too. They've got Anthony Mackie in one episode, Topher Grace in another one, and Miley Cyrus.
Oh, really?
But that actually
I'm
works.
not going to say... Yeah, I was going to say I'm not going to say that in a bad way.
No, it was actually surprising.
I was surprised how well it worked, having her in it.
As you said, it's sort of technology, and then how that technology can either be abused or go wrong.
Yes. Yeah, and well, the social media aspect, for example, one of the stories is about a guy who... He kidnaps someone who works for a platform called Smithereens.
That's it.
And this is from the newest series, and I think it's the best one from the newest series. It's the most British one from the newest series.
Yes.
You sort of don't know in the beginning what's going on. Why has he done this? But you find out that he's deliberately kidnapped someone from this company. And it's because he has an issue with the way the platform has been used, the way it has taken over everybody's life. He makes a comment about it being the first thing I see in the morning and the last thing I see at night. And you compare that to what that phrase would have been in the past, would have been your partner, your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. They would be what you want to be the first thing you see in the morning and the last thing you see at night. And now this social media platform has taken over everyone, and there are scenes in it where you're just kind of moving past people, and every single one of them is looking at their phone.
In this story, they're trying to say it's the company's fault, which is the equivalent of modern day Facebooks and whatever. But that's the impression it gave, is like, oh, it's the company's fault that you got these problems. And I thought, well, hang on, it's up to the individual. So I took it from a completely different angle.
They do. There is actually a line when they're concentrating on the people in the company that they say they have a department deliberately for the neuropsychology and the neurotransmitters.
I get that.
But they're marketing It's almost a drug.
They're choosing to tweak it to a point and in a way that almost forces you to interact with it more and more and more and more. So you kind of get forced into a position where you have to interact with these things. And absolutely, everyone has a choice about whether they do or not and how much they interact. But what's also interesting about this is how they use the information of people's interaction.
I mean, then there was another episode, I think it was a couple of seasons ago, where they were looking at the whole likes and reputations thing.
Yes.
And the fact that you're only allowed to do, it's actually a precursor to the way that China is actually using the same information. But I think Black Mirror just got in first. That your interactions with people, you're literally giving people up or down points on those interactions. And then that builds a social score. And depending on that social score, you're allowed to do or not do certain things.
And how one little mistake can completely turn
ruin
your
your
life
reputation.
around because of the way this system works.
We actually discussed this many episodes ago in the Orville.
That's
an
right.
episode like that.
A very similar episode.
Where a person's life is actually based on their ratings. So,
Well, there's another episode where it is actually a life and death thing, where a hashtag is created to death to such and such.
Oh, yes.
And based on the number of people who pick a particular name and tweet with that particular hashtag against that name, that person is actually executed, as in killed. And the interesting thing about that episode is that the people who are voting initially don't know that that's what's going to happen. They think it's a game. They think it's a joke. There's a little video that says, if you use this hashtag, if you tweet this person, we will kill them at 5 p.m.
Execute command, in other words, but literally,
yeah. But people don't realise that they think it's a joke, and so they're tweeting, and someone does something they don't like, and it becomes a bit of a big thing. One of them is a pop star, a guy he's on a TV show, and there's a video of a little kid who's been imitating him, and he doesn't know they've got the little kid behind the scenes waiting to meet him. And he starts making fun of this kid. He starts teasing him and saying he's a terrible dancer and he should just stop now. And of course that gets out to the public. Social media, kind of blows up, and people start tweeting this death to this guy. He ends up at the top of the list at the end of the day and gets killed.
Wow.
I think they then twist that around, don't they?
Very much so.
That everybody
at the end.
who had actually started using those hashtags then gets targeted.
Turns out to be the target.
Turns out to be the target, so they do the complete twist.
I love the twists at the end of these episodes. There's so many of them. There are one or two that you kind of think, oh yeah, okay, that was always going to happen. But a lot of them, and this was a particular one, they get to a point where you suddenly realise the people that actually have been killed so far, they're not the real target. And the target is thousands, hundreds of thousands of people.
Yes.
Wow.
It's amazing. And look, I could go on and on about every single one of these episodes.
Do you think it's the kind of thing where it's meant to be a hidden message underneath for people to learn from
I don't
this?
think it's hidden. I don't think it's hidden at all.
Okay, well, okay, so it's in your face for people to learn from this?
Yeah, well, one of the things I like about science fiction is that it asks those questions, not just can we do this, but should we do this? I think we've talked about this a little bit before with Altered Carbon and a few other of the shows that we've talked about. But this one is very much a, if we make these choices, this could happen. And that particular episode, the with the hashtag, that's what they're trying to say. It's all about consequences. It's all about the idea that you can hide behind your profile. You can be anonymous if you choose to be.
Yep.
You can say whatever you want, and because you're behind a computer and not in front of a person, it feels like it's not real and it feels like it's not going to hurt anybody. But in actual fact, there is always a real person at the other end of that computer line, that connection. There's always a person there, and it can have real consequences for their lives. One of the people who gets targeted, all she did was pose inappropriately in front of a statue. Because of that, people get upset about it, and fair enough getting upset about it, but getting upset to the point where you tweet a hashtag that they should die, and then having that be the end, the result, it's a massive thing. And often I think on social media people don't think about those consequences.
Yeah.
They don't think about the fact that what they're saying can and does affect the person on the other end.
Yeah.
I could talk about
I
every
know.
single episode
You never, when
individually.
there's a 6th season, or maybe even later on, we might
Look,
revisit it.
we're up to season 5 now, but they're not big seasons, so don't think it's a massive commitment. If you want to watch it, I think it's absolutely worth watching. The first 4 seasons were brilliant. I'm a bit hesitant to recommend the very first episode. I found that quite disturbing, and I didn't go and watch it again when I was rewatching it. But it gets you to think about things that exist now in a way that you haven't necessarily thought about before. People tend to use the technology we have, and they just, something cool comes up and they just start using it. They don't think about what the consequences of that are going to be.
So what they need to do is produce a Black Mirror episode where there's a show called Sci-Fi Zone, and if everybody tweets a big thumbs up and this show's grouse, we get lots of money and millions of views, and everybody loves us. How good would that be? Absolutely
awesome.
Fantastic. So if you haven't had a chance to watch Black Mirror, it is on Netflix, so you'll have to give it a look in and see how you go with it. So it's all very good stuff. So that actually brings us to the end of the episode. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe with us and click on the bell for all the latest updates and reminders about everything that's going on next week, because it's the end of the month. Fun, frolics and factoids, more trivia, and H is going to be doing an MPS and opening something up. It's very exciting stuff. So in the meantime, make sure you chill out and stay in the zone, and bye for now.